In this episode, I want to rediscover this add-on called SORCAR. Previously, I actually talked about this add-on. It was previously called ProcGenMod. Now it's called SORCAR. It's based on the magicians. There's another magician called Houdini, already turned into an app, and this one is called SORCAR. I don't know how to pronounce this correctly. I can easily call it SC or SO, but anyway. This node has been developed for a couple of months now. If you look at it at Blender Artist thread, the thread has become quite long. To get you started, I really recommend you to have a read the notes. This thread started in April 2019. Now it's all the way, and you got so many good examples, especially from Benny G. If you find some of his posts here, and also from Punya Ahmad himself, he made some really good tutorial about this. So really have a read at the thread and then look at the video, and then so you can get started. So this add-on is working only for Blender 2.79. It might be ported to, but for now, Blender 2.79. A couple of things that you might find if you use Sverchok a lot, and you use the search in Sverchok. If you activate this add-on, it might be clashing a little bit. So SORCAR. This is SORCAR version 205 by Punya Ahmad. I activate it. There's a way to update it now. Okay, cool. Okay. I think the search doesn't work. Okay, this is still a bug. I don't know why, but the developer couldn't find what's causing it. Anyway, so let's get started with this node. Once again, try to look at this node like the first time like when you first use Blender, it's kind of like that. SORCAR first time. The nodes itself, some of the nodes, if someone explained about the nodes, but you're given like 100 of nodes at the same time, it's kind of confusing. It's like when you're learning Blender and then the person say, okay, you can do 1,000 things, and you will get confused. So it's a good idea to take a quick look at the nodes, take a look at the names. I recommend that before you go into SORCAR, you need to understand Blender first. Like when you're working in Blender, you can have an object, and then you are working in object mode, but you can jump into edit mode. And in SORCAR, they call it components operator. So you go to mesh mode or component mode. So that's like object mode and edit mode. When in edit mode in Blender, of course, you can go select the vertices, the face, the edges, and then you can you can transform, and you can extrude, you can inset and do things, all kind of things like that. And in SORCAR is the same. And in Blender also you have modifier. So modifier is big in Blender. You are definitely should be familiar with all this before jumping into SORCAR. So if you want to start, you start with this one, the first group, plane, cube, whatever. This one will definitely create an object. In the past, when working with ProcGenMod, in order to have something on the 3D view, you need to output it. So there's a refresh mesh output, and you do this, and then you refresh mesh. But you don't actually need to do this anymore. Although the print can be useful. So I click 3 times, and okay, let's see if this is actually working. Mesh cone, plug this in, refresh mesh. Yeah, it says cone. Okay, this might be useful. And now we already have 2 objects that suddenly appear in the 3D view. I'm gonna delete them. So the way SORCAR works now is whatever you're selecting it should generally update. Wait, well, it's not doing anything at the moment. But I remember if I create a cube and then, oh yeah, I need to drag the properties and then now it show up. Same thing with this guy. So that's a cone. That's also can be a cylinder because it has the top and bottom radius. And you have all sort of primitive 3D mesh here. The one that I use a lot at the beginning is usually grid and maybe cylinder and maybe UV sphere, but you can play around with it. Grid is useful because I delete everything again and then just, okay, this didn't show up. Okay, I need to select the node and then play around with properties, and that's gonna update. Okay, interesting. So I have this thing, and the nice thing with grid is that if you go to wireframe and then you play with subdivision, you should be able to see the result here. Okay, yeah, it's if I do this, draw all edges and then make changes, it's gonna change again here. There is a way to deal with that somewhere here. Well, never mind. Let's see if the search function works here or not. See, I have a feeling that I'm using a version of Blender that doesn't work with the search of Sverchok and also this SORCAR Add-on. This search should work. It's pretty annoying, but it's a bug, so I have to mention that it's clashing with Sverchok, and so that's okay. We keep going. So with the grid, we know with this add-on we have a lot of mode here, but that's the one that's important is this conversion to component mode and to mesh mode, so you can go in and out of edit mode. And then there's selections, all bunch of these selections that allowing you to select or deselect faces. When you create an object in Blender and jump into the component mode, you see it's all selected by default. So that's actually important, because when you jump from object mode indicated by white and go into this mode, it's indicated by black. So now you are in a component mode. By default, this node will deselect everything, but you can select it, it doesn't matter. What's unique to important is that whether at this state is being selected or not. And then the next thing you want to try is to maybe select components manually or by material, normal, etc. Or try by index first. And then we want to operate on the mesh. We want to extrude, for example, extrude faces, vertices, edges. Let's try faces. So components, extrude. Am I extruding anything? Maybe. Yep, I'm actually selecting something. It should be extruding at this point. Oh yeah, it does work. But I need to select the node and then play with the parameter. So yep, you can have this a couple of times and then change the index. Oh, you need to turn on extend. So extend just means you're selecting one and then you extend it and then extend it. And then you can extrude face. Oh, you need to select the node and then extrude. So that's interesting. So yeah, and the next thing you want to do, you can try and test and go back in the node here and then see if you can make changes and then it still updates, because this is what it means by procedural. It's non-destructive, so you can always go back and it will select the face by its index. It's probably like a strange concept if you never use procedural workflow before, but this is, yep, very powerful. So now you want to go up to the object mode. Once again, you go to conversion, go to mesh mode, and at this stage, yeah, we are back in object mode. And if you want to do something fancy, you can export the mesh as FBX. So by default, you're given this file path and then file name. You export, and it's gonna give you an error because it couldn't find a directory, path directory. So in order to do that, normally the way I do it, if you want to save something, for example, on the desktop, I'll create a new folder, and I'll call it SORCAR out. If I create a terminal and create a new window, terminal window, if I drag my folder there, you can see the path. It's just telling me I'm user's name, this is my name, and then desktop SORCAR out. That's the path. We need to paste it there. And then the name by default is untitled. If we hit that, it doesn't give error anymore. And then inside here, actually it gives us this. That's probably a bug, but we need to add another slash and then export. Now we should have something inside. Hello world. Export mesh. Now we have hello world, which is good. And if you want to convert it into Apple USDZ, it will work. USDZ convert. Few seconds. So we have this object without any material. That's why it's pink. All right, so that's a fancy thing, FBX export without having to go file export FBX. We can just generate it from SORCAR. So that's the first thing you want to understand. From object mode into component mode, into edit mode, and go up back to object mode. So yeah, that's, I think, pretty clear. If you want, instead of selecting component by index, we can select by random. This is also a famous example. Select this and update. See, randomly selecting the face that we want to extrude, and we do this procedurally. You want to have less things selected or 100% selected, or yeah, whatever in between. Remember the state of component being deselected or selected, so that's important. And then go back. If you don't want a grid, you want to have like a cylinder, maybe UV sphere, you can do that. UV sphere by default is too many subdivision. Update it. I found that also interesting because now we are working on the second geometry here. I kind of wish it's still working on the grid, but that's okay. There we go. Delete our grid. Now we have this randomly selected, and yeah, I think it's nice. There's probably slightly like a bug there when it's reset itself and then suddenly the subdivision is different. I mean, the one that's being extruded is different. But yeah, we have to deal with that for now. Select this, update, nice. And we can also use subdivision here. Subdivision can be used on the object level or at the component level. Let's do it inside the component level. So you can see this is in the component mode. This is like higher object mode. It's probably a good idea to align it like this. You can use straight cut subdiv or smooth with some smoothness, bit of fractal along normal random seed. All of this is really useful and really quite unusual that you're able to do this so easily. Oh, I made a mistake. I subdivided before I extrude, but that might be what you want, because you can always go here and modifier and add a subdivision surface modifier up here, and you get interesting result. Simple, cut more clock. And whether you want to smooth it or not. Where is the smoothness? Shading. Yeah, shading. Yep. All right. That's not bad. Yeah, that's actually, if I want to subdivide it after I extrude, that's perhaps also will give us a different result. Unplug, plug it there. So the order of operations matters. Select this and update. Oh, extrude, okay. That's the result I want. Turn on fractal, yep. I just subdivided control 2 just now. And of course, you want to have shading, smoothness, auto smooth. Interesting, it doesn't seem to update. Quad or triangle along the normal random seed. Trying a couple of things here. But if you want to get like starting to make something that's kind of useful, you look at example by Benny. So Benny G made a lot of example that's really useful. I save it for my own study at some point. Like if you look at the nodes, at first it might be overwhelming because suddenly you can see all the operations and they are still alive. But don't worry, don't be afraid. This is actually quite simple. Like if you look at it, look at the white indicator. This is in object mode. You create a cylinder and then you jump into the component mode and you're selecting face by sides. Select face by sides. That means you find a face with four vertices or quad, and then select by nth and then extrude it, so you get this kind of gear. Let's actually try doing that, building it from scratch. I don't know why, but I think it's a good study. So I'm gonna save this as, this is Benny gear creation. So cylinder, if you play around with this, you will end up with a cylinder. And with the cylinder being active, we can go into component, select face by side. Let's try doing that. Go into component mode. Now the face is deselected. That's what we want, right? Deselect all. And then we want to select component by, select face by sides. We want four-sided face. and try extruding it. Extrude face, I think extrude face, correct. So that's actually correct. If we, yeah, if you, it's selecting all the quads and then extruding it, but we want to select every end. So we use select and select every end, put it there. So it's gonna skip face. Oh, I put this in the wrong place. It's supposed to be like that. Still getting used to all this way of working. Now, it makes sense, right? It's selecting every 3 or select every 5th and skip. Well, it's select and then skip. Anyway, that should make sense. Okay, we still have control over the cylinder radius, the number of vertices, and the depth. All right. And yeah, that's kind of, we are getting here, and we can resize. Okay, resize is useful. That's resizing the component. Resize. What is this called? What is it called? Selection, transform, resize. Wow, resize. Constraint to X, Y, Z. Ah, we need to extrude it and then resize. Okay. Order matters. Resize, this is for object level. We need a component level resize. Component operators, where is resize? Couldn't find resize. Maybe I'm blind. Don't worry about that. Let's try inset anyway, and then select. See, this is also interesting when you're able to see the component level operation, but it's still live. That's actually really cool. Very nice. Yeah, all right. That's handy. I'm pretty happy with this ability to see things live. So if you have like 100 and then you're selecting every 20, you have 5, right? 100 divided by 20, you have 5. Or you can have it like that as well. You can still extrude the face. You can still play around with thickness. That's really nice. Very nice. Select face. Select. I didn't do the resize. I didn't inset. But this example by Benny is another thing. Recreating this takes some thinking, but once you get used to it, you just need to search for the nodes operation, and it's gonna be like you're just gonna be doing it on the fly. But like I said, if someone gave you 1,000 pieces of Lego and then you started to get confused, but if you started with just a couple of nodes and try to understand the function of the nodes, then it's a lot easier that way. For now, just get used to the idea of being able to go inside the edit mode procedurally and then go back to the mesh mode. And then very likely you need to have refresh mesh anyway. Yep, that's interesting, but that's not what you want, but still. All right, so I think that's pretty much covering a lot of things in one video. How many hours have that? Oh, it's almost half an hour. But yeah, definitely read through the thread. This is actually my second video. I made another video beforehand trying to cover a couple of things, and yeah, it's actually trying to do the same thing, but I end up with a different result. But I think I cover most of the things. If you want to do things like in Sverchok, where you have like, you want to extrude this randomly, you might need to look at the flow control and then use the begin and end loop. That's probably for the next video, because this part is already pretty complex. Before you go there, you probably want to get used to all these modifier and then all these mesh and curve operators. So you just need to kind of empty your mind and then try to understand all these component, mesh, curve operators, and the rest of them will make sense at some point. All right. Thanks again for tuning in. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.